The suspense is killing me.
Mm-hmm. Well, hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to a very, very special show, I should call it tonight, with my friend Grant. How you doing, Grant?
I'm doing great. Thanks for using two specials. That's very. I like that.
Well, of course, you are very special because we had a really interesting conversation, me and you, I would say 3 years ago. We want to talk about Islamophobia tonight from just like, I would call it a kitchen table talk. I don't think I'm not religiously qualified to talk about it. And I don't think Grant study political science in any way. We just two average Joes having a conversation about Islamophobia. And that's really what I want to bring into the conversation. It's just like, a kitchen table kind of talk. So the mic is yours, Grant. If you don't mind, just fill us in. And who is
Grant? A
little
bit about myself. Who am I?
Yes, please.
Let's see. Well, I'm Canadian. I was born in Saskatchewan, but I lived in most of my life in Taber, Alberta. So corn capital, just south.
Yes,
Gotta love the corn. Gotta love the corn.
Right.
And then from there, I went to college in the States, university, studied criminal psychology, played football, and then came back to Canada, worked in the oil and gas industry, and then figured out I don't want to do that anymore. So I went to Los Angeles and went to Los Angeles just because that's when you're 21. You should go to Los Angeles and enjoy yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Of course. I mean, Taber's a small town. I needed a bigger pond. That was my plan.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I went there, met my wife, got married, and then we ended up coming back to Canada. So now I've been back for 10 years with my 3 kids and my wife, and predominantly been working in the oil and gas industry.
And then dying industry. Is that what you meant? The dying industry, oil and gas industry?
Dying, it's pretty much dead. Yeah. We could talk about that too. I got a lot of
honestly, that's what I want to say. We have so much to talk about, but we picked the topic tonight to talk about Islamophobia specifically because we do know, today was really, and for me as a Muslim Canadian, a historic day for what the government did, acknowledging making January 29th is a day to remember the massacre that happened in Quebec and the mosque shooting, and also to make sure that we're going to talk about Islamophobia and we're going to try to I would say I don't want to say the word fight as much as we need to educate ourselves about these matters, so at least we understand each other and we try to find solutions for an issue like that. So I just want to make sure that everybody with us tonight, me and Grant, we met 3 years ago at the warehouse at the Calgary Immigrant Support Society warehouse 3 years ago, and we had this conversation about Islamophobia back then. And me and him and another gentleman, we said we're going to do some kind of like a town hall type of meeting. So we're going to talk about this and we're going to invite other people so we can have this kind of debate / dialogue. But with the changes, me and Grant, we decided to do that kind of things tonight and try to talk about Islamophobia from my perspective, from his perspective, and general perspective. So Grant,
it only took us 3 years. So this is going to be good. It's going to be good.
Well, the last year doesn't count. The last year was horrible. So Grant, okay, being a country boy from Taber.
Yeah.
You are.
That's
Do you
fine.
like country music to start with? I mean, I'm sure corn music.
I'm not a big country music guy. I'm actually more like a R&B hip hop kind of guy. But
so let's start with this.
I do know some country music.
You do, eh? Okay. I'm a big fan of country music. And
really?
Oh yeah. Paul is my guy. So here you go. When you hear a word Islamophobia, for you, what was give me what's your impressions, what's your feelings, what's your understanding about this concept of Islamophobia?
Well,
and let's not talk politics. Let's be just I don't want to just a politics talk as much as just like a guy to guy talk.
No, I'll tell you from my heart. What you're going to get from me is 100% from my
Oh.
heart. I'm not going to hold anything back or be afraid to say anything and I might say something wrong. And if I do, I apologize to anybody that's offended out there.
No worries. Just go ahead.
That's not my tribe. We're just going off the cuff here. It's interesting. And with what happened today, obviously making this a commemorative day, which I think it should be. And it's actually interesting. My Facebook main profile guy, I've changed it to a Canadian flag 3 years ago when that happened at the mosque because the people that died at that mosque were Canadians, right? And so when there was all these things going around the world where things were happening and people were putting up French flags or whatever, but I put up the Canadian one on my picture because of that. Like where you're from doesn't matter to me. It's Islamophobia. So I'm not Islamophobic, but it still doesn't mean that I don't have intrepidations when it comes to what are we doing culturally? Are we changing? What does that change mean? What does it mean for my kids, for my family, for the neighbors down the street, for you, for new families coming into Canada? A lot of people probably that know me would say I'm kind of left and liberal. Mm-hmm. I'm a lib. They're going to own the lib. I'm not a crazy. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not a crazy conservative guy. There's not. More communication like this is important, right? This is what we need. Too many people fighting with each other, putting people in boxes. And if you're conservative and you're right wing, that means you're racist. And if you're left wing, that means you're a snowflake, social justice warrior. And we're so much more than that. Like we're so much more than that. And the same thing with you. Like if I am Canadian and an atheist, like I am, I don't really like saying atheist because I don't really believe anything.
Yeah, I understand.
So for me, like it'd be like believing in you getting mad at me because I don't believe in unicorns and calling me an ununicornian. I'm just whatever. And like yourself being Muslim, like I think it's great. If that's what you believe in, that's amazing. Okay. Whereas Islamophobia comes in the thing is people are worried. So when we were kids in Tabor, we didn't know any Muslim people when we grew up. Okay. It's pretty homogenous kind of environment. There were some Mormons and Christians and Mennonites, and and that was pretty much all religion that we had. Okay. And so I didn't even know what a Muslim was until I watched. I don't know if you ever saw the
A Mosque in the Prairie.
No, but way before that. You ever watched the Robin Hood with Kevin Costner, the original?
Yeah, I did that. Yeah.
Okay, when Morgan Freeman was a Muslim guy in it.
I remember that. Yes,
you're right. That's the only Muslim I knew was Morgan Freeman from that movie. Like I had no clue what it was. Right. So ignorance. If you're ignorant, you don't know. So then as things have changed, and obviously we have more immigration because Canada is an amazing place. And when you're a light in the world, people want to come here. I totally understand that. Mm-hmm. And when you came in, then people are just worried about what will Muslim and Islam change our culture? Will it change our culture? Okay. Is it possible? I mean, obviously you're Muslim and you work in this with all the Syrians coming in. Do you think that the people that come in from those countries want to actually change the culture at all?
Not at all. I don't think ever they even think about it that way. From what I know and from what I stand, and from the point of views of a lot of people I know. But go ahead, please. I want to hear your side of your angle first.
Well, I guess I kind of look at it where Canada is an amazing country, and working in the oil and gas industry, I've been lucky enough to travel a lot and a lot of different countries around the world. And I've seen that Canada is great, right? So when you look at it, you're like, do we really want to change what we're going to do here? And so what people think is like, well, are we going to change the school system a little bit? The big fear that I don't agree with, that I don't think is going to happen, but Sharia law going to come in? And since a lot of people don't understand what that is, there's fear. You fear the other.
So hold on. What does that mean to you, Sharia law? For Grant, like when you hear the word Sharia law, what exactly comes to mind?
Well, so for me, it might be a little bit. I'm not going to say I'm super educated in it, but since when we met, the whole reason that we met, I reached out because I wanted to know more. That was the whole purpose, right? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just for knowledge. I was writing a book, which I'm still writing. It's only been 3 years.
Right.
I'm still writing. And I needed to have some background on what that was. So for me,
Right.
Sharia law is just a set of rules that has been set out in both the Quran and the Hadith.
Right.
And depending on your religious sect, you see those rules, they differ. You know, it's
Right.
like Catholics and Protestants. If you're
Right.
Sunni or Shia, like that's very broad. I don't want anybody freaking out.
Right. Yeah, okay. No, that's fine.
but it's just a difference thing.
You don't
right?
have to be too sensitive about it. Just as I said, just say it the way it is.
True. But you know, we're living in a time where you can't say anything and everyone freaks out.
No, we have to be free. What's the point of living in a free country? I mean, this is unacceptable. I don't want to use the word BS, but we have to be free to speak our mind, regardless. In the end,
I agree.
Okay, so go ahead, please.
Yeah. So
when you hear the word Sharia law, I mean, as I said, just say it the way you feel about it.
It'd be the same way with, like, if you really implemented something like that, would it be women wearing full coverings, the niqab, right? Or the hijab? And that's required. Or would you be able to have multiple wives? Is that something that you can do? And would Islamic law, would it supersede the Charter of Canadian Rights and Freedoms? Is that something because the religion, because Islam is such a big part of people. I understand why.
Absolutely, yes.
It's a huge core, and it's not just a religion. It's a full way of life. Islam is all embodied.
Yes.
So that's what scares people, because it's not like can you really separate, like we're talking all the time, church and state. Can we separate Islam and the state? Or if it's perfect, you're going to want to push for that, you know?
Yeah.
I think where people get worried, and I work with a lot of people, that just, they don't understand. So they think, well, if they're going to come in, why don't they're going to change the way we have it. And why do we want to change the way we have it?
Mm-hmm.
It's just fear, right? It's fear.
I know it's fear. Yeah. I mean, definitely.
Yeah. It's just fear.
So Grant, I mean, this kind of fear, is it related to, like, when you were back in the days when you said you only knew, the Robin Hood movie?
Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman. Yeah, back in that. When did you start to feel like, you know, that Sharia law things and the fear of somebody coming from different countries and trying to force their way of life on us? Do you remember at roughly what point of your life you started hearing these kind of talks? Is it 5 years, 10 years, back to the 9/11 time?
I think that would probably be it, right? That's when because obviously Muslims have been in the United States and Canada for a long time. So and there wasn't an issue, and that was what it was. And then 9/11 obviously happened, and that brought this focus. And I don't think it was fair, obviously, because if you think about Muslim terrorism in the United States and Canada, or even around the world, it's tiny. The majority of terrorism between Muslims is between Muslims. Right.
So when you say Muslim terrorism, are we talking about, because again, that's one of the things that Muslims are very sensitive about it, is when you say Muslim terrorism, that means, like, you know, linking Islam and terrorism into somehow even being very soft-spoken about it. But I totally understand all that programming we've been going through for the last 19 years, maybe more. I mean, I lived in the North America for almost 28 years now, and I really think this message is so consistent and so vivid, like day after day, week after day, Sunday after Sunday. I don't know if you remember back in the days when the 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock night talks about all this. I don't want to use the word evangelicals, but there's a constant feed of fear that's been happening for years in North America, and I'm witness of that.
For you, would you have felt that before 9/11 then?
Oh yeah, I mean, I felt I didn't know. Before 9/11, it was so candid. It was like so hidden. It was just like, you know, Armageddon. We were talking at that time. I remember talking about Saddam Hussein, and before that Gaddafi, before that Ayatollah, and all that stuff, and always link that the bad guys is going to come from that Far East, and we have to be ready, blah blah blah, for the big battles and all stuff. So I used to hear that all the time, but it wasn't as clear as these days. Like even when I go now and listen to some of the TV stations and YouTube stuff, it's so clear. The call against, I don't want to say only Muslims, really is, there's like, I feel like there's somebody trying so hard to create that fear, somebody working so hard to create that enemy, somebody working so hard to create that separations between people. And to be honest with you, I feel like somebody using that fear for other purposes. I don't want, one of them is like a white supremacies, left and the far left and the far right, and everybody try to use, I feel like it's a scapegoat. Personally, I feel like this Islamophobe, it's a scapegoat, including some of the Muslims who, in my opinion, or some of the people who consider themselves or say they belong to a Muslim faith, they literally feed into that fear by some of their practices, some of their actions, some of their belief, but when you have somebody only highlighting what I want you to see day after day. So I'll give you an example. And I'm going to give an example from my body, from me, so you know how I'm talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
If somebody want to convince you Sam has a big nose, okay? No, bear with me.
Okay.
So every time you show Sam, you get the camera right to his nose. One image, second image, third image, fifth image, 10th image, day after day, year after year. All it's going to be embedded in your mind that Sam has a big nose. Right. You're programmed now. Why I'm saying this, because back in the days, I remember back a friend of mine back in the US, girlfriend of mine at that time, she looked at me and said, Sam, you look like a terrorist. That's what she said to me, okay? And that was like a friendly conversation.
Yeah.
And I said, at that time, this is my first experience with like really terrorism has a face, okay? So, and so on and so forth, and we know what's the reason for all that. So I'm trying to share this story with you and try to share your side of the story with me, so at least we can try to bring some logic to where these fears coming from and how we can understand each other so we can calm it down.
Like, is fear ever logical? I think that's one of the big problems with fear. It's not really logical. And so you have media, they're very easy to divide people, to divide us,
okay,
right?
Okay.
And people obviously go towards the other. They want to, if you're different than me, yeah. When they fought in wars, the first thing they did when you invaded the Germans or you invaded Japan is you made them the other. You called them a slang or a slur to make them less than, so you can do those things. And we naturally do it. But I think so like when I look at Islamophobia,
yes,
for me, is Islamophobia me questioning if Muhammad was a real prophet? Right. Is that Islamophobia? I don't, or the same way I would question a Christian, or we can say a Scientologist, are there really aliens living inside you? Like, is that Scientology phobia? Can I question the religion? And where does it end where I question it? You know what I'm saying? Right. And I think it also sticks with, like you're talking about a face.
Yeah.
So if I told you to close your eyes right now,
yeah.
Okay. And I said that today there was a school shooting. What picture comes to your head of who shot up the school?
Today,
we heard there's a school shooting. What comes in?
A hillbilly boy with a rifle.
I mean, that's it, right? It's a white guy between the ages of, 18 and 35. It's a white guy, right? So
yes.
Yeah. So if I hear that there's somebody drives into a crowd of people in a van, or there's a bomb in a van, my head's going to go to the same thing. It's probably a Muslim guy, right? Like, now, is that synonymous? No, it's not 100% across the board, but there is some truth to those things. Just like that guy, that's a hillbilly boy that's shooting up that school. It's probably truthful. And I think we also got to realize that there is some truth to these things, and then bring it back and say, okay, there is truth, but it doesn't mean everybody. Of course, not the whole Muslim community, just like it's not all white guys that are killing people in schools. Like, it's a huge thing.
Yes.
And then for us as well, like, it's in that core of what it is to be Muslim.
But you know, I mean, Grant, sorry to say this, and I don't mean to just try to, but this is, as much as I understand how people talk when they are in a normal situation, but in real actions, this discriminations against Muslims, and that's what I mean by Islamophobia. I don't mean like you can criticize whomever you want to criticize, you can discuss whatever you want to discuss, but the thing is, when you labeled me already as a terrorist, or as a bad guy, or as if like, oh, I'm not as good Canadian as you are, or I'm not as loyal as you are just because of my faith. This is what I mean by Islamophobia. But you can criticize anything in this world, but not to discriminate.
No, that makes sense.
But reality is, Grant, I'm going to give you just an example. When there is, and I want you to explain that to me, okay? We just had an incident down in Nashville. Just not what is it, like a month or 2 months ago, when we have this terrorist, like a suicide bomber. In my opinion, it was a suicide bomber who bombed the city of Nashville, and I was just looking at the coverage, and I always say to myself, my goodness, if this was a Muslim-looking I'd say a Middle Eastern-looking with some kind of Muslim name, will the coverage be the same?
Oh, dude, it'd be totally
different.
It'd be totally
way
different.
Jose, as they say. Yeah. And the question is, why is that? Like, you as a Canadian Tabor boy, why is that?
I don't have. Well, I think we know that there's obviously racism involved in that. I think it's an easy target. It's kind of like when George Floyd, George Floyd, when he got kneed, and all they did was tear the man down and say all the horrible things he was behind it and all that kind of stuff. But when that woman just died in the Capitol, and I can't remember her name, Aubrey, whatever, they started talking about how great of a woman she was, and she was a military veteran, and there's two sets of rules, and that's not right. It's ridiculous. It shouldn't be that way. I think more conversations like this help with it. I think, and real ones, open ones, where people can say what they want to say and be in a safe place of they're just not sure what's going to happen. And like, I know for me, like, obviously I don't want Canada, and I'm not saying it would turn into that, because I understand numbers and percentages and there's not enough Muslim people to change it. But the biggest problem for us, and I'm speaking for everybody, which is
that's fine.
I'm speaking for everyone. All of Canada. Oh, my friends are like, oh, dude. I think one of the biggest problems is the small number of people that do something stupid in a terrorist act. So in France, that teacher that got beheaded by a student for drawing the picture, by showing the Charlie Hebdo things, right?
Yes.
Now, when you look at that incident, it's horrible. It's gross. It's disgusting.
Absolutely, yeah.
But when you think about, like, what is the real percentage of Muslim people that would say that teacher, it's horrible, but they shouldn't have been drawing those pictures, and that's the true crime? What is the real percentage of Muslim people that they wouldn't do the act, right? 100%. They're not the ones going to go do it.
Right.
But there's still support because it's their faith and that guy stood up for it. And in a way, he's kind of a hero. Like, I don't know if you can speak for everybody, but would you say that's a large percentage, small percentage?
Well, it's a percentage still, but and it's still a percentage, but really, whether it's small or large, the question is, what is the effect on the majority of the people? What's the effect of the actions of a few on the actions of so many? And that's what I'm talking about, is because I've been and before.
I think I think that's the biggest thing, though. It's that number. Like, how many people believe that are of the Islamic faith believe that Sharia law is not a bad thing? Like that, there's a lot of good tenets in the Quran and in the Hadith that we should follow, that our society would be better. What is the percentage of that? I mean, the real one. That's, I think that's the question. Like, what is that percentage? And it's
So-
interesting that you mentioned, like, so this is going to be kind of crazy, and I'm not going to throw, but you remember when we were doing that meeting together, and
Yeah.
it was me, you, and Selma,
Yeah. Saima.
Simon. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
And we had one other person there. I'm not going to put his name out there because I don't know if he wants me to talk about it. But me and him, Simon brought him because he was really knowledgeable when it came to the Quran and the Hadith.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
And so me and him have stayed friends for the last 3 years. So we talk every now on Facebook and Messenger and all. And I love him. He's freaking great.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Yes. Yes.
Super good guy. Super
Yeah.
good guy. But I'm going to be honest and like tell you, he has actually contacted me with fears himself that said, I feel like there's some things going the wrong direction. Can you talk to a police officer? Because I have a friend who's a police officer about some of these, because he's been trying to preach a lot, his version, which I think is great, of the Quran. He's, you know, and when someone like him, who I think you respect as well,
yeah, of course,
says something like that, I think, wow, what is the real percentages of people that are against him and for what he's saying and against and more supportive of this, more like the Wahhabis, not saying that's all together, but the more staunch.
Grant, I just want to make sure that I want you to know that I can tell how careful you are and how, I don't want to say, I can feel that you are really talking, and also you're just like, I don't want to say you're not comfortable, you are, but you're so cautious. And for me, that's a real problem, because if I start talking about the flames, if I start about anything, you're not going to, I think you'll be more comfortable talking to me about it. But this topic specifically, I can tell that you don't even feel comfortable talking about it publicly. Am I right on that?
I don't. So here's the thing. Because there's nuance in this, right? Because if I could say, like, if I said something where, like what I've been already talking about, percentages, and is this kind of thing going to happen, and the fears that we have, and like with our mutual friend that has contacted me about getting help for him because people have threatened his life.
Right.
I mean, I have to be careful with that because it's a real thing.
That's the whole point. But listen, your fear, Grant, it means so much to me.
Well,
like we can talk about Jesus now. If me and you start talking about Jesus right now, would you feel more comfortable?
Well, and you know what? This is a great point, and I really appreciate that you brought that up. So let's say we were talking about Jesus. Yeah. I could talk about Jesus fairly openly, right? I could do whatever I wanted to talk about Jesus because people make fun of Jesus all the time. Okay. Or if you're a Mormon, Joseph Smith, same thing. So like, let's say I held up a picture right now of Jesus Christ. No problem. Joseph Smith, no problem. Whatever's with the L. Ron Hubbard from Scientology, no problem. Right. If I held up a picture of Muhammad, that'd be a problem. So it's different. Like, it is a truly different thing that we can't, and a lot of people would be very angry about it. Like if I drew a picture right now, it's not the same. It's not the same. So I have to talk more cautiously because just for that reason, it's not the same. And that's what makes people worried. Like, that's one of the things about Islamophobia. It's something like that where I look at it and I go, totally irrational. Like, I'll draw a picture of anybody because I don't believe in any of it. I think it's all silly.
Right. But okay, go ahead, please.
But I think it's all, like I said, I think it's all kind of silly. So it doesn't bother me, but I do know there's a definite.
It's not silly. It's true. It's really a real thing, because those are the things, some of the Islamophobes that are using this argument to build that fear and to build these walls between Canadians based on their faith, and specifically targeting one group of Canadians just because they are Muslims, not a Muslim. It's a Muslim with S, not Z. But and unfortunately, there's some people on the other side, they fall into this and they play it into it. But when we talk about the drawing or photos or pictures and all this stuff, it's one thing. But when you persist on making so-called images that shows the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, in a certain ways, in certain images. So it's not like about the freedom of speech as much as it's just like try to quote unquote demonize and humiliate the figure to achieve other things. So this is not about just a dialogue, me and you. Okay, let's talk about Muhammad. Okay, what do you think of him? What do you think of this? What do you think of that? I mean, it's not, because some people, yes, they want to have an open dialogue and just want to know. Just, I want to know about Jesus. You want to know about Muhammad. I want to know about Buddha. I want to know about everybody. At the end of the day, I make my own mind. I make my own decisions, and I have my own belief. But when I use those fear-mongering tactics to create a divide, this is the problem for me. When I walk in the superstore, and my ex-wife, God bless her heart now, she said to me, Sam, I feel people are looking at me differently now. She lived here for so many years, but now people are looking at me differently just because I'm a Muslim, just because I wear a hijab. I look like different, even though the same person was so nice to me. But all of a sudden, we start to become sensitive / programmed to just, to accept these differences and say, you know what, us and them, right?
Yeah. The other.
And honestly, people, al-insan, we say in Arabic, al-adu, al-insan adu ma yajhal. Al-insan adu ma yajhal. Meaning is people fear what they don't know. People do fear what they don't know. So, okay, you're a Muslim, I'm a Muslim. The question is, okay, how many Muslims do you know? Oh, well, I don't know any Muslims, or maybe I know one or two. And really, all this Islamophobia, when I talk to so many people, it comes down to really this. Like, how many Muslims do you know, and how many Muslims do you know that they've been so-called, quote-unquote, good Muslims / and how many Muslims you know, quote-unquote, bad Muslims. I'll never say, oh, this is a good Christian, this is a bad Christian. This is a good Jew, this is a bad Jew. This is a good Hindu, this is a bad Hindu. Only when it comes to Muslims, all of a sudden, it's a sensitive issues. Okay, and I don't think so far I'm talking about anything new. We all know that. I just want to try to get into your way of thinking, because I want you to educate me. That's all what I want. I want to understand.
I want you to educate me too. Let's educate each other.
Okay, let's do that.
Let's do that. I think the difference is right what we just talked about. So, like, would you recommend me? And I know it seems trivial, but I do think it matters. And this is the type of things in people's heads that they don't understand. So would you recommend that I drew a picture right now of Muhammad and held it up to the camera?
I personally, I have. For me, personally, I think you have the right to do whatever you want. I have the right to put that cameras on. I have the right to discuss it. And I have the right to respect your opinion as long as you respect my values and my beliefs and I don't want to say holy figures in my life, but also, and I really appreciate these questions because you challenged my own fear as well. When I tell you, let me tell you this, because when we live for 1400 years, we know there is no photos for the Prophet Muhammad. That's it. You can even, let me give you be more clear on that. It's not like, oh, it's a forbidden, as much as it's people that are not used to it. So all of a sudden, instead of somebody trying to put it in a nicer, attractive, inviting way, all of a sudden is you come up with this image. Literally, it's like a demonize anybody. It's just like I mean, it's not the purpose of expressing your freedom of ideas and thoughts and stuff like this. I feel like it's just a way to, I don't want to say attacking as much as it's just a way to show disrespect / discriminate.
Okay, I get what you're saying. I get, because what you're saying is, like, why would you want to do that anyways? Basically, like, why would I want to show that picture that I drew of Muhammad?
You can show it. Totally. Personally, I have no problem with this, but I do understand some people don't accept that. Some people are so sensitive about that, especially if when you put all the other element into it,
of course,
and you try to portray that character in a certain way. Because in the end, we're human. We're human. Meaning is, okay. Let me tell you something that really hit home with me about the importance of image. Before I came to North America, I mean, my contact with so-called Caucasians mainly through media, right? So you sit and watch TVs, and all of a sudden, all these good-looking men are usually white, blue eyes, handsome, polite, and all this stuff. And if there is any bad
I
boys,
have green eyes. I have
okay,
green eyes. Just
and if there is any bad boys or bad character, literally,
yeah.
whether it has to be a German accent, is if it's a white, it has to be a German, or if it's a Middle
Probably.
Eastern, if it's a Middle Eastern, it has to be a black hair with the black eyes and all the stuff. So
Right.
listen, whether we like it or not, these images, it plays so much role, because
Oh yeah.
it's been used to create certain understanding in your mind. So white guy is such a nice guy, black guy is always trouble come from that. Evil is black, goodness is white. Okay, simple as that.
And you know what? Like, that's very true. And it's been that way for a long time, Hollywood and all that kind of stuff. But it's also true if you even think about it in India, where you have Bollywood. They look for the lighter skinned people to play
So
most
true.
of the lean roles. I don't know.
In Egypt the same, because
Really?
you know what? Yeah, in Egypt the same. But if you go, hear me out. So this has been happening since, I would say, at least 100 years.
Yeah.
When it was black and white, it wasn't important. But since it's 30s and 40s, it's really huge. I said, even in Syria, even in Egypt, where this is like a big media business. If you see an actor with a lighter skin, greenish eyes, some kind of light hair, he's a star. That's fine. But if you go back just 100 years ago, where I came from, up till recently, when this like a dream capture that we use here in North America, where we put somewhere just to catch, to prevent bad things from happening and to catch bad dreams and stuff.
Yeah.
We have a saying. We have a back in Syria something. It's called like a blue eyes, because we have a symbol of a blue eyes. So if you want evil not to come into your house, we put the evil eye on the front of that, at the front door. So back then, the blue eyes was the symbol of evilness. Where's that coming from?
Well, I guess, if you had to think about it, the most people in Syria or who have brown eyes, most of them have brown eyes, right?
Yeah, have a
Would it
brown
be?
eyes, because
Right.
blue eyes,
So,
and this is
so
my
the other,
interpretation.
it's the other.
It's the
That's-
other. Is the invaders, because back then, okay,
It's
you
the other,
Syria or the
yeah.
Middle East. I mean, who would come from? Roman, then you may have a Greek, who knows what. So you have those always.
Yeah.
Over time, culturally, people start to connect bad guys to blue eyes. The same in North America, you connect black eyes or dark hair to the bad guys or terrorists.
Yes.
So
And
really, we do. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I think your point is 100% correct. That's what because obviously you're a minority.
Yeah,
so
I am a minority.
You're a minority, right? So because of that minority, it's easy for people to, one, be unaware of you or to fear you because they don't know where you come from. They don't know you as a person. So I don't know if you do it. I'm not going to lie and say that I've never looked at a person and judged them wrongly. And that could be someone that was maybe overweight or someone that had, any type of background or certain religious kind of thing. I want to say I'm better than that now, but I've never always been perfect. Like I know that I've judged people based upon what they look like or maybe what their religious views were. And those are wrong things. And we got to learn to do that stuff. But I guess the biggest thing is when we had that discussion about the pictures and the stuff like that, there is a definite difference between a Christian person, me drawing Jesus Christ. I could draw him any way and nothing would happen to me. Mm-hmm. But when I mentioned drawing it, I don't know if you felt it, but there is fear, right, in our hearts because you don't want me to show that. Yeah, like it's real. So like we need to understand why that happens. And is that right? Like that fear, we're fearful because there might be somebody out there that's going to take it the wrong way. That's going to go, holy crap, we're done with this guy. And even so Sam, like the book that I'm writing, the whole reason I went to meet you guys and saw you guys, the book there, my main character, one is a priest and the other one is a woman who wears a full niqab, and she's a doctor from actually Syria. So those are my two characters, right? And my wife to this day is terrified about me actually publishing the book, because she's like, what if people, and I'm not derogatory to any one of those religions. The book is about love. Actually, it's about two people from different places coming together and loving each other. But is that going to be looked at as bad? I don't know. My wife's kind of worried about it, right? And she's not worried about it from and I'm not going to lie to you, because we're being open now. She's not worried about it from her Christian friends, because they're not going to care. But am I going to insult anybody on the Muslim side? And I tried very hard to write it authentically and to research it and do the proper with it, because I don't want to offend anybody. It's not even about that.
Right.
But she's more worried about that for a reason. And we have to address that too. Like, why that fear, is it totally unfounded? Like, would you agree that fear of those type of something happening like that, like my friend, our mutual friend, calling me and being worried about it, that just reinforces my fear. Actually, it makes me think, geesh, you know.
Well, hold on. I mean, that's a good point. So now here you go. You remember
this conversation, by the way? I'm freaking stoked.
Do you remember when I told you about? Somebody wants you to believe Sam has a big nose. Remember that example?
Yeah.
Only show Sam with his big hunky nose. I want you to see Sam in that way.
Right.
So whatever image I have in your mind, I just want you to see that. So this is. I mean, we know this from. It's not a secret. It's so easy to humanize somebody and to demonize somebody.
Yep.
Even to that, let me ask you that question.
Sure.
We've been hearing about Islamophobia for the last, who knows, let's say 20 years. Okay.
Sure.
And you hear YouTube is filled with all kind of stuff. I mean, accusation, bad things, and all the stuff. Here's the question.
Media is horrible.
The question to you, Grant. Tell me when, for the last 20 years in North America, right? In North America, when did you hear of anybody in North America took actions based on somebody saying something against Muslims or against the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, or because anything? I'm talking about physical actions. And I'm not denying, by the way, don't get me wrong, I'm not denying that. But I want to put it in perspective. We're talking about 1.6 billion people. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And again, I'm not saying this to justify it. Don't get me wrong. I just want to be realistic. Even if I eat sugar, I'm gonna die. Does that mean sugar is bad? If I eat salt is bad. If somebody's gonna tell me salt is bad, and I'm not. Again, I totally agree with what you said, but I want to know where that came from. Is it from Salman Rushdie back in the 80s? You remember those days? I don't know, how old are you? But when that Salman Rushdie wrote this satanic verses and all that stuff at that time.
Oh yeah.
This is where all that fear came. All that fear came after 1979, where you start saying, oh, Muslim. And again, it's not really a denial of something that might exist. The question is, what a percentage, or what's the scale, or how can I influence me? So my friend Grant in Calgary, Alberta, he's even afraid to speak his mind to me, or his wife concerned about not to talk about this character because it might put him in jeopardize his interest or his life or his family. For me, that's a really a scary thought.
But so, like, even if the percentage is small, right? Like, I think when we look at things, numbers are huge, right? Oh, what?
I'm not talking about percentage. Okay, I'm talking about the human. I mean, you can't. We're not dealing with angels. Like, can you name?
Well, here's the thing. So, like in Canada, yeah, for sure, I agree with your point. Like, has that really happened here? I think wasn't there in Calgary that somebody ran into somebody, a Muslim guy rented a van or something. Like, it's totally small, tiny little, like nothing, right?
Oh, that was in Edmonton. Yeah, Edmonton. And Donald Trump called the prime minister and said, we stand behind with you, blah, 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 and all this stuff. And just a few days, or maybe 2 days after, we have an incident in Las Vegas where we have like 60, 70 people got shot and got killed. And you know what? Not even. It was, just like some crazy guy, you know?
Well, the States is a whole nother thing.
No.
They're a whole other thing with guns and shit. They are nuts. They are nuts in the States. Here's the thing, Sam. it's a really good question. Like when I talk about that book and the characters and would I get backlash from it? And when we hear, like, it might not be a large percentage. It isn't a large percentage, but when you're talking about people on a personal level, like we don't think of like you don't think of Mormons when you think of them, that you could say anything about them. You're never going to hear of any Mormon person really taking it out on anybody else or killing anybody. And even though the number's tiny small, I totally agree. It's not sensical for our minds to think about it. Like, right. But if there is that chance, when I know that the Mormon, I can make fun of Joseph Smith all day, they're not going to come to my house. But there is a chance it could happen the other way. And that one little chance, I know it's a small nugget. I get it. It's not even a rational thought, but you do have to think about it. Right? Like okay. And that's kind of I don't know how do we juggle? How do we juggle that?
We just need to talk about it. That's all what we need to do. So at least we understand each other. We understand our fear, where the fear is coming from. Maybe something need to be done on the other side as well. We can't just pretend, everything's hunky-dory and look at these wonderful, peace-loving guys and Muslims and being so victims and all that stuff. Because as your friend says, there are some issues also exist. And the other aisle, whether related, whether within the faith itself, or how they view the other side.
And when you mentioned that, Sam, like that, so that right there, I do think is pretty important that more people, and it would have to be Muslim people, obviously, and they understand that we can look at that part and say, okay, there might be some stuff here, and there is some stuff here where people would agree with people that do some horrible crap. They would never do it themselves, but because of their belief, they do think that it's okay that they did it. Even if it's a small, like 10%, 20%, right. We need to be able to look at that and say, do we really want this? Like, does Islam need a reformation? Just like Catholicism did.
Okay, no, you know what I'm saying? I understand where you're going with that. But my dilemma is this. If you go, and I don't have the exact figures and exact numbers. If you go by all the so-called, for the last 30 years, in terms of all the terrorist victims, everybody who got, let's say, if you count all the victims of terrorism in North America for the last 30 years, okay? Right. And if you try to weigh in the victims of so-called extremism, like a Muslim extremism versus, let's say, a right wings or some kind of like the KKKs or the white supremacies and all that stuff victims, whatever the case is. Yeah. If you take a percentage, and as I said, I'm so sorry for you and for the listeners tonight because I don't have the exact numbers to say, this one and this one, but by far the percentage, it speaks itself. Majority of victims, they are not victims of Muslim terrorists. They are victims of terrorism from all kinds of stuff. But somebody convinced you and convinced me, when you have a terrorist act, first look for Muslims and try to find any link that's going to link it to a Muslim dude or a Muslim name. And so if it's a Muslim guy, then the conversation will go in that direction. If it's a non-Muslim guy, then the conversation is going to go in different directions. So literally, I do believe there is a problem started right there. Is who's feeding you the news and who feeding you creating those images in your mind. It literally, they are not operating out of thin air. There's and I don't want to say they have agenda behind that. Of course not. But literally, Grant, I live in this country for 28 years. Me being Muslims today is not the same as I was 20 years ago.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. And I would also say too, like, if let's say we're watching the Capitol riots that just happened in the White House, and instead of 5,000 MAGA people, you had 5,000 Muslim people breaking into the thing, it would have been a lot different. It would have been a lot different. I think we all can agree. It would have been, there would have been, terrorists would have been everywhere. People were even very slow to call what happened terrorism, and it should have been terrorism for sure. Like, ridiculously. Okay. Ridiculous.
And I talk about terrorism because it's a talking point. It's a headlines news. It's whatever. I have a friend here in Calgary And I call him friend, even though he's like extremely, extremely Islamophobic. Oh my goodness. I mean, I've been working with him for the last 3 years, just tried to convince him as one little thing. He's
How's
completely
that going?
so,
How's that
you
working
know,
for you?
you know, he every day in the morning, he would text me, email me, and find every single news in the world that has some like people killing people. Say, here you go, this is your buddy Muslims killing. Look what happened in Africa. Look what happened here. Like even like if there's any form of unrest worldwide, he put the label on it and go to this Hershey, whatever. Like there's some website and stuff. They only feed Islamophobic stuff, and this guy is so sold for 3 years, Grant, trying just to convince him there is a good Muslim, there's average Muslims, there's not too good Muslims, and he said, I am worried about my grandchild. I said, you're worried about your grandchild from what? He said, you know what, because you people come in here to do this, exactly what we started, me and you, come in here, do this, come in here, do that, you do believe in this, you believe in that. And I said to myself, okay, so I can set me and you, Grant, and we talk forever about it. But I want to find a different way so we can bring more people into the conversation. And I supposed to have a lot of questions today, but unfortunately, we were just like we got a little bit off track by the connections for almost an hour. But I have so many people here, and I have so many points that unfortunately I missed to bring any questions. So anybody has any questions right now? I do apologize for anybody who asked before, because I'm not going to go because I have so many. So you guys, if anybody has any questions, please send it right now, and I'm just going to go to the bottom of it, because I want you to ask Grant specific questions related to Islamophobia and what can we do as citizens, as people, whatever belief system you might have, we just want to find ways to be able to talk about things that we disagree about, or we have a different views, without being scared, right, or without being just like feeling, oh my gosh, I can't say this in Canada because somebody might hear me and then they're gonna go wacko on me.
Well, yeah, I think too, like, this conversation's awesome. I'm loving every second of it. And the big question, like the thing is, we need to find common ground, right? That's the core of all of it. We need to figure out common ground.
Right. Sorry. So yes, Cindy, yes, his name is Bob. My friend Bob. And I keep calling him
what? I've actually seen you talking about Bob before. I've seen your stuff on.
I tried so hard to let's have a conversation. He was afraid. He said, no, he doesn't even want to identify himself. I said, why not? He said, I don't want somebody to come and boom, 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 do it. I'm so sorry to say, Grant, he said exactly the same thing. He said, I don't want somebody to come and hurt me.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's start with Muslims.
Yeah, sure. Give me
Here. This is Hamid Saad. Let's start with Muslims condemning extreme views we have internal. I totally agree with that. I really do agree with that, because
that's great. That's true. Yeah.
Okay. This is a problem, Grant. That's something like in any faith. I mean, you have extreme to the right, extreme to the left, and majority in the middle. Most people, they just want to live in peace. If you can't even distinguish between faith and stuff. But unfortunately, in every society, there is element of extremism. It doesn't really matter. You can name one. Even Buddhism. Like, you remember how we were talking about Buddhism and Hinduism and all this stuff? Look what happened in Asia. I mean, look at what happened in Myanmar.
yeah, horrible.
I'm not trying to pinpoint one faith, but what I'm trying to say, human is the human does. In the end, we're all human. We do stupid stuff.
Well, even if you're thinking about that, think about China and what's happening with the Uyghurs right now. Like, it's horrible. It's horrible.
Absolutely. Look what happened in Spain. Look at what happened in Spain. I mean, Inquisition is just like not even 200 years ago. People were just slaughtered, were burned on the stake because of their faith and their belief. And I'm not justifying nothing. All what I'm saying is people do people stuff. Okay. But when we have an issue just like that here, extremism within, I agree with you 100%. And I'm just give you one example, and I'm just going to confess to you, because it's happened just like 20 some days ago, Grant. I was asking a friend of mine on people I know. I said, guys, it's a Christmas now, so let's go and at least say to your neighbor, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and all the stuff. So I am just reminding people this is an occasion that's really good to build bridges with people and all stuff. And one of the clergies here in town, he just like blew a casket saying, "Oh my goodness, you're not supposed to say Merry Christmas." We're talking real stuff here. Oh, you're not supposed to say Merry Christmas. You're supposed to say that. You're supposed to say Happy Winter celebration or something like that. So I'm not saying extremism, but within our own faith, there is very different views on so many matters.
Yeah. That's the crux of it right there. That is that's where we're at. Like, and I feel bad for someone like yourself, because I know you obviously,
Right.
That if something does happen, let's say some crazy guy goes ahead and kills somebody in what he believes is the right thing for Islam, for his faith, and then somehow you got to apologize for it, because that's crap too. You shouldn't have to do that all the time.
Exactly.
Right?
So here's the questions. Somebody's asking about your book, asking you what's your book is about.
Well, it's a story of two people that a Catholic priest and a woman who's Muslim, obviously, and they're both broken from different things that happened in their life, from different moments that happened when they were younger, and they meet in London, England, and with circumstances, they end up kind of. I'm not going to give the whole story away, but they break down barriers for both of them, for sure. And the major part of my book is about religion, culture, politics. I tried to get everybody mad.
Yes.
It's basically about that we can find a better way if we come together and we find the common ground that we can, no matter where we're from. That's what.
Honestly, I think we have to find ways to bring people together. We have to. It's not like we're not going to leave it. Okay, it's better to. No, we have to make it. We have to create it. You know, this conversation tonight, it's just like as I say, one candle in the right directions, in the right place.
I agree.
The more we talk about it, the more we bring the right people to talk about it. I don't want to bring a priest, politicians, or sheikh to have this so-called debate. I want average Joe to talk about it. I want to say, you know what, my buddy Joe, like, why are you scared of me? Why are you afraid of me? Just because I don't drink alcohol with you, that doesn't mean that I disagree with you. And you know how important to have liquor and to have a drink and socialize and all that way. But unfortunately, you know, I mean, we are different in a way, or we have different practices and different belief systems. But in the end, we are under the Constitution of Canada. And that's really a good question for everybody who's listening here is, in the end, are we bound by the Charters of Rights, the Canadian laws, or we're bound by so-called the Sharia law? That is something need to be discussed within the Muslim communities.
What do you think? Like, what do you think about that? Which is the superior law?
I think personally, I think that's really this is this very hot debate from within the Muslim community, within the Muslim themselves. This has nothing to do with the East, West, and all the stuff. Right. So even if you go to any Muslim country, you'll have that debate about like where do you go and how you do it. But literally, you try to find. For me, anybody who moved from his place, moved to another place.
Yeah.
For me, that new place has rules already set in place, and he already accept, whether he like it or not, he accept to live and to be bound by the law of the land. The law of the land gives me the right to practice my Muslim faith. Same way give the Hindu to practice his faith. To atheists to do whatever he wants. So we made already an agreement to live under this law they'll call the Canadian law.
Well, so here's my question for you. From what you know and in the Muslim community, what would the percentage of people, like, is that hard? Like, what's the percentage of people that agree with you and that would say, no, instead we should follow Sharia a little closer or take this little bit. What is that percentage? Like, that's the question.
No, I would say there's definitely a percentage of people who talk about this, who we say we have to, in the end, we're Muslims, we have to live by the book, because we believe Islam's is a faith that was sent to people through the Prophet Muhammad, and we do have a Quran, which is the Holy Quran, and we have all our laws and all stuff comes derived from it. But the same way, let's say, they give you, and that's what hear me out here and see how sensitive is that. So let's say Sharia law says, if people steal, if you, a thief, if you prove this guy, let's say he's or she's a thief, you cut his hand off. Hands off. Okay. Yeah. It's written. The question is, throughout the Muslim countries, throughout the 1.6 billion people, okay, name the percentage. I'm not saying in Canada. Name the percentage over there where people apply these laws. Why? Because there's within Islam's, there's like some justification for it. Like, if you want to do this, first you have to make sure it's an Islamic country. You have everything so Islamically all the way to the bottom of it. So you can feel even people try to find ways to live so-called in harmony with their outside. Give you an example. Syria is a Muslim country. Jordan is a Muslim country. Lebanon, same thing. Iraq, Egypt, and all these countries, they are Muslim countries. Do they cut their hand? Do they cut the thieves' hands off? They don't. So the question is why? Forget about the people who live in Canada.
Yeah.
So that proves to you these are an issues that have it within the faith themselves. Within the faith, it's been debated, it's been talked about, it's been thought of. People have a different views, and that's why I give you so many countries. They don't do this. Where they do it in a few countries that we already know. Who are these countries? So why you take the 10 or 20% and try to make it, oh, everybody's feeling that way? If people in the Middle East or the Muslim country, they don't practice Sharia law. So you're afraid that I left the country 30 years ago, or who was born, raised in this country, that I'm not saying we're not, I don't think, don't get me wrong. It's not about justification of the matters, but about the maturities and how we already decided we move to a society. It's a mosaic society. We are part of a bigger society. We live by the laws of the land, and we want to be also, because when we protect these laws, we protect ourselves. So I don't know if I answer your questions or if I give you a new.
Yeah, I know it's a super difficult question. Just like you mentioned, the clergyman that you talked to about Christmas. That's a clergyman. So if he thinks that way, I'm sure he spreads that thought to other people in the congregation. So that spreads. And I mean, when we all, like, if we're trying to find something, I thought about this as we're talking right now. Like, I don't know what the most important thing to you is, but to me, it's my kids and my family, right? That's the most important. And so I think, is that a place where we can come together on our families and our kids? But then I think too, like, well, not really, because if you really believe in Islam, you're going to raise your kids differently than I'm probably going to raise my kids.
Absolutely.
Right? So we're going to see things very differently. How can where do we end up? Like, where does the bridge go? How do we get there? Like, I totally want to. And I know a lot of other people do too. Like, a lot of people do. And there is fear there, and there's irrationalness, and I get that. And it's a small percentage or a big percentage. We're trying to figure out what those are. But that's where we don't know. Like, how do we, when we're so different culturally, and I think Canada's amazing. I think Canada's amazing because we're having this discussion. We're having these cultural discussions about how do we adjust in this changing world that's only going to continue to become more interconnected. Like, we're not going backwards. Like, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. No. Yeah, that's right.
So for me and me, like, I'm obviously not against immigration. I think I understand why people come here. It's a great country. That's why you came here. But for other people that are afraid of it, they have to learn too that most people want a better life for their kids and for their family.
So true.
And And they just came, like, if you were in Syria and the horrible things that were happening there, and you had a choice, I can stay back here and my kids could die and, you know, ISIS could come and kill them, or I could go across the ocean and take I have nothing and I'm going to risk everything. But I know that this way, my kids have 100% chance of dying. And this way it's only 50%. I'll take that way. And we all would.
Okay. I just want to, as a being a Syrian, and you mentioned like, Syrian and ISIS going to kill them. I just want to tell you, this is one of the quote unquote wrong ideas that already, for some people do believe in. If
ISIS,
you go,
ISIS didn't invade.
No, just let me finish, please. So if you go and ask, let's say if you have 100 friends, I don't know, whomever you meet here, when you talk to people here, especially I just want to correct that. So just because we want to be honest, majority of people who came to Canada, they were not so quote unquote ISIS victims. They were victims of all parties, primarily the government side as well. So, but again, why did you mention ISIS? For me, that's my point.
I think that would be because that's so played up in the media, right? Like that's what we see, right? That's what we see. So when you see Vice News, let's say Vice, and Vice is pretty
Vice, yeah.
They still, you know, I've watched a bunch of videos with Vice and Vice talking to women and children that were taken by ISIS in Syria, and I can't remember what their religious.
I picked on that only because I know the situation.
Oh yeah, I totally
picked on that only because because when you say Muslims are is a terrorist. You know, just because of course why have that idea in my head? I want to know where it's coming from. Just the way you said, oh, ISIS is people came here because they're afraid of ISIS.
And this might sound horrible, but I think too people are attracted to, and I'm not attracted, that's a wrong word, but people are. It's like when you watch. I don't know if you ever watch like hockey or if you've ever watched skiing or anything like that, or skateboarding. We always watch for the crash, right?
Yeah, well, of course.
Of course, we want that guy to take a because it sticks out, and I think those things in the media stick out, right? Like we watch the bad stuff, and then all of a sudden we equate, okay, that. Now, of course, we shouldn't equate every Muslim with ISIS. That's totally craziness. But what is it? Good. Children should grow up in Canada culture. Oh, they just asked a question to you about Canadian culture.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I'm going to answer that. So.
If you want to, you can feel free, or I can keep going on the ISIS thing. But my biggest point was,
I just want to make sure you picked my point. You said something for me. You said something for me. It gave me an explanation why I think of you this way. Why I think you're such a good-looking guy. Is that because just like you look like some actor from the 50s and 40s, and you have a nice why I'm questioning myself. Why I think you're a good guy. Just because the way you look, and you look at me, I'm a bad guy just because the way I look.
You're not a bad guy. You're not a bad guy at all. You're not a bad guy.
Anyway, I'm questioning how we develop our own thoughts, our own views, and
I don't know, dude. I don't know.
I just used that ISIS example because when you know the whole story, you feel like this was out of proportion. It's just like somebody convinced you that way, just like somebody convinced you, oh, the regime is bad. Somebody convinced you it's ISIS bad. Somebody is this bad, and all this stuff. But if you talk to Syrian themselves, you find a different story, and that's what I want to say.
I think even if, like, you look at it, when you think of World War II, what's the first thing that comes to your head? The Holocaust. There was a lot of other things that were happened. 20 million Russians died, but we think automatically of the Holocaust and what happened, the horrible things that happened to the Jews. We're attracted to,
because the brutality of the killing,
it's here,
the brutality of the killing was just unimaginable.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't mean
here, right? I mean, that's what it is. We want to watch a car wreck. That's horrible, but it focuses us, right? If it's why the horrible things that happen, like that student in France that cut that guy's head off for doing that picture, we focus because it's like, boom.
So is that when we hear there's some kind of explosion or some kind of killing or some kind of like a suicide bombing, we want to see Muslim guys doing this, and if it's not, all of a sudden we are less concerned? Is that an explanation? Is that an explanation? And I use this the Nashville one. I mean, just Nashville. What happened just the last one?
I think you know what? I don't think it's necessarily the individual event. where it happened. I think that obviously is part of it, right? Like I said earlier, if somebody goes into a school and shoots up a school, we're going to think it's a white guy that's 18 to 35 because that's who shoots up schools. But when we think of the Muslim thing, then we also think about like how many people are supportive. But you go ahead and answer that question first. I think that's
I want to find it because, as I said, the question is just pouring in. And let's agree on one thing: we got to do this quite often, and we need to bring more people. We need to bring more people into the mix because, just so guys. So here. That was Tracy. Thanks, Tracy, for the questions. Do you feel the Muslim children should grow up in the personally? Yes, 100%. I mean, maybe your questions will mean something to me. You say, Sam, do you feel the Muslim children? I would say, I will put it, do you feel that Canadian Muslim children should grow up the Canadian culture? Because for me, these are Canadians and these are Muslim Canadians. They are not only quote unquote Muslims and the Canadian, because Muslims and Canadian, they are not like two sides. This is just like a part of the pie. Right. As much as we have a Christian Canadian, we have a Jew Canadian, we have a Muslim Canadian. So if you mean by what the Muslim Canadians children need to live by the Canadian, live according to Canadian values and culture, 100% agree with that. Because as I said, we live by a law that governs all of us, the law that gives me the right to sit in front of you. You are a good looking white boy talking to you like this. Because the law protected me. That's why I'm safe. That's why I'm comfortable. Right. So I want to give you the same right you give me. I want to give the other guy the same right that he or she gave me and all the stuff. So this is how we live. This is how at least we live not only in peace. This is how we build this country together, in my opinion. Of course.
We're doing it together. We have to. Yeah.
I'm going to leave this for you. This is a long message from Cindy. If you don't mind, go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, when I married a Muslim and we joined our culture, we found our culture was much more similar to different. Most people want the same thing, safe place to raise their children, family, but it would be interesting to see what the differences would be in Muslim kids and non-Muslim kids. Okay, yeah. Okay. Is there more to it, or is it that just the end part?
Anyway, I'm leaving it here. We just gonna Nadim al-Haq.
Well, I can answer some of that question, like what I would think the differences of raising in a Muslim family as opposed to not being Muslim, right. Of course. I've been lucky enough. My kids went to Langevin School here in Calgary, which right. Which is very diverse, has a large amount of East Indian children, Muslim children from Syria that are Muslim, a lot of different ethnic groups, which I think is amazing. It's one of the things we wanted our kids to be more involved. Our kids' generation, they're the ones that are going to figure this out. Like for sure. They're so much smarter. They're so much smarter than us when it comes to this. They don't seem to care as much. But what I would say is that I guess the difference for me would it be with Sharia, like right. having, I kind of look at it as that a woman is not second class, but like the same way, you're going to need two women to speak for a man if it is in like court or like yes. that kind of stuff. They're not as valuable, and that's not valuable is not the right terminology, right. but or that they have to wear full covering, right? That depends on how you interpret it. But so some true. People believe, right? Do they have to wear one? Do they just have to wear the hijab? Like there's so many different things there. And I guess those things, like the segregation, the separation part, I feel like Canada, what makes Canada great is that we have this cultural, but also people and free speech and discussions with each other. And right. I kind of look at it like since Islam is such a integral part of people inside their hearts, right. like you said too, like you come to Canada. I don't know if you like football. I love football. And I'm a big New England Patriots fan. But if somebody from the Browns, nobody get mad at me out there about the Cleveland Browns, or let's say the Detroit Lions, right. they're not very good. So if they're going to come to the Patriots and say, hey, let's change the system, they're not going to listen. It's like, why would we want to, this is a great system. Why do we change it? And that's a big part of how that works. Like,
okay. Well, definitely. I agree with Okay, I think this is a process that how you talk about an issue that people see it from different angles,
Hmm.
a process where you have the others that they think a little bit different, or they have different belief, or they have something that different than yours,
Right.
and that's all the hanky dory is fine. My problem is when you pick and only one group and highlight, and I don't want to say a justifiable reason, but you find every reason to make the others doubt and fearful of this particular group based on the actions of you. This is where my problem is, where I feel like politics start to play into the fear mongering mentality,
You
or
know,
just achieve some political gain, just like what happened in Quebec, or what Stephen Harper tried to do with his turkey.
right. So so this is an interesting thing, Sam. This made me think of this point. When I was a kid and we talked about like my first thought of a Muslims and when I saw them in Robin Hood and all that stuff like that. But I do remember a time where with my parents, my dad, where people wearing a turban, East Indians obviously, wanted to change the Mounties traditional dress and wear the turban. And I was a kid then. I was like 8 or 9. My dad was furious because this was such a Canadian thing. And then he didn't want to change it, right? He didn't want to change it. And that was something like culturally that a lot of people had to deal with. Like, okay, does that mean now I'm totally for it? Like, please.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Mountie, wear your turban. That's fine with me. It's great that Canada can change. And we need to admit too that Canada has changed. It's slow, and racism, it's not going away, and it's slow, but we are changing. It's just like my kids' generation, they're going to change this. They're going to make it way better. The way they talk to each other, the way they joke with each other, their cultures, our cultures. I mean, it's the best. It's one of the things I love the most about my kids and their friends, because they're so diverse and they understand each other and they're okay with it. Like, but the friends are too, right? Like, they're like, okay, you don't believe in Islam, that's fine, whatever. And I think we just need time, and it doesn't happen fast enough. I agree. I wish it would happen more.
Time. And I think we're over an hour and 17 minutes, so we need to wrap it up shortly here. We need time. The question is, do you think we are going in the right direction?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think without a doubt. And I feel sad that maybe people don't think we are, and maybe it's not happening fast enough, but I do think we are, because we're having these discussions. These discussions didn't happen 20 years ago. People didn't even talk about it, right? Like, it was such a separate thing. It is better. And like I said, my kids, like, they're changing this. So I feel sorry.
Maybe I mean, part of me, I disagree with that. Just based on what I see and what I read, I really think social media gave all of us the opportunity to get into the other people's mind. So when we start reading stuff that's horrendous from both sides, from all sides. So if you go to any website, I'm sorry, any social media platform, all the stuff, you can find all kind of people, all kind of some of the stuff that you read it about how these people feel about this faith, and about this faith, think about this faith. Like, even sometimes when you talk about from Muslims and stuff, like, you hear, I mean, it's just, I really think, I wish things are getting better, but I think we're at the point where really we need to be so-called smarter in what we read and what we believe in, and also we need to find ways to measure, like how to say this. Like, we need to find ways to get to the truth, not the fake truth, not the bad things. Not like, I can tell you right now, I can bring you to a guy in Victoria, BC. He don't believe in none of that. He doesn't believe in democracy. He doesn't believe in faith. He's a Muslim guy, and he's a preacher in Victoria, and he would tell you, if you vote, this is not Islamically, and you're not supposed to vote. Literally. He's the one guy with 20, 30, 40 followers that the already authorities are aware of. But when a group of, I don't want to say a hate group, when they take that guy with 20, 30 followers and put it on YouTube and try to broadcast it and say, you know what, this is what Muslims believe in. They don't believe in democracy. They don't believe in this. They don't believe in that. And they are here to destroy us. They're here to kill us. They are to convert us. They are to enslave us. They are to all kind of crap. It's gonna make me really, I don't want to say a victim. It's gonna make me just like more. It's gonna polarize societies, and I see polarizations. It's really happening, and since 2016 till today, allow me to disagree with you. Things to say things are not better, but okay. I would say more challenging, and I don't know what's the next step should be besides just try to reach out to the right people.
I think, and I can't. I feel bad for you that people are racist towards you. I think that's total shitty. People shouldn't be like that, Sam. And to anybody out there too, like anybody watching this, there are good people that aren't that. We don't judge you by your color of your skin or where you're from or your religious background. There are people like there's more of us. But the thing is, those people are so quiet, really, because they're just living their lives, like you said. And those bad people, the people on the right, the people, and not just the right, but there's left people too. But the people that want to focus in on the bad stuff, they're just really loud about it. They're just really, really loud about it. And so it sounds bigger than it is. But most of us, man, we don't care. Like, we just want to have good life for our families and for our friends. And if this is what we need.
Yeah, this is what we need.
You need another side to that. But
I need you to find me Bob. I need you to find me Bob to bring him and have a conversation openly. So we got to find a guy who's going to be the Bobby boy.
Oh, I know some guys. Oh, I know a lot of guys that'll be happy to come on. Yes.
We have a volunteer in the warehouse. He was like a good-looking, tall, white guy. I mean, he told me, Sam, you will not believe what happened to me since I started coming here. I said, what? He said, I started posting the photos that I'm with my, newcomers pictures and stuff. And he said, you have no idea the amount of messages I'm getting from friends asking me, what the hell are you doing with these guys? Like, what the hell are you doing helping these guys? And this was coming from part of Alberta. I'm not going to name a place or something. But again, social media gave us the opportunity to really dig deeper into the issues. And if we're not smart, this country is gonna be Trumpetized in no time. So we have to acknowledge that these issues do exist.
Oh yeah.
And from both sides.
And the difference too is, Sam, like even my wife, because we came, like I said earlier, from Los Angeles. I'm from Tabor. I'm Canadian. She's American. My kids are both. But
she's like a wine. You're a corn boy.
That's it. How did that work out? Like, how did that come together? I don't know how it happened. But we've even noticed the change in the 10 years I've been here. But I think, like Trump, okay, and that whole thing, all it did is it put a spot. Like, you can't heal the wound until you clean it. And so, like this racism thing and the other that we've talked about 1,000 times right now, you can't clean that unless you know it's there and open it up. And Trump opened it up. He gave them a voice for people in quiet places in these dark corners to talk. And by doing that, we can clean it out. We can say there's another narrative here, this one, or down the street. And like I saw somebody said, we need to spend more time by a campfire. 100%. You need to grab a beer and hang out with your neighbor, no matter where they're from. Like that's what's going to change it when you start seeing that person not as the other, but you see them as a person. They're a dad, they're a mom, it's a daughter,
Anyway, so I think we do need to. Thanks for everybody's watching tonight, and
you've been judging Sam and Muslims by things you've said. Do you feel like I've been judging you?
I don't think this is really. I'm not really sure if she was saying this to you, or I don't think so. Susan is definitely. I don't think she feels that way or think that way, but I'm not really sure why or to whom she was saying that. But anyway, I would love to continue with this. Here you go. Hamid, Saadat. Is it okay? It's Okay, so I know Hamid, he's asking this specific question. This is a really tough question. Anything alcoholic, anything that has alcoholic, Muslims should not drink, period. Okay.
Right.
The question is, do they follow this? Some people do, some people don't. Okay, so and that's anyway. I'm not I'm not the sheikh. I'm not qualified. I don't want to even get near that because I'm not the right person to ask. So you want to know halal or haram? Ask the specialist. For me, I just want to have my good talk with my good-looking friend Grant because he reminds me of some really famous actor. I forgot his name. Anyway, Grant, we gotta wrap it up. So let's do this again. Let's plan for it differently. Please. Let's try and find those people who have really so-called, I don't want to say extremism ideas. We don't want to bring like talks into the conversation, but we want to discuss things in logic and be honest with our conversation. I just gonna say, I acknowledge the problems do exist, but also I acknowledge problems do exist on both sides. Okay?
Yeah.
So there is no perfect side here and there is no bad side here. We have people. Some are good, some are bad, some are in between, and all the stuff. We need to work together to bring people together and to fight together the bad deeds, no matter from where they're coming from. And we need to encourage each other and to help us out, to help each other to bring the best of us for the better of this country and the future of our children. So the last word for you, Grant.
There's for me. Yeah. I want to say that I loved every second of this. I really did.
Isn't it?
I loved every second of it. I really did. And I would ask anybody that's out there that's in the comments, because I can't see all the comments that are coming up, but feel free to friend me on Facebook. It's Grant Pryor. I'll
I'll add it to the body of this.
Put a link. And then also, like, me and my son, we have a YouTube channel. It's called The Morning Wood. We talk about this generation and his generation, which my kids' generation are so much smarter than we are in pretty much everything. So, and their outlook on life is so hopeful. And I love that part about it. So, and if anybody did get offended by what I said today, I meant absolutely with all my heart.
Thing. Yeah, same thing.
Never. These are just questions, and we have to talk. We have to talk about it. We have to talk about it. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you, Grant, and thanks for your son who helped out with fixing the audio problems this time. I want to apologize for all the people who put comments and I did not have a chance to look into them or to put them on the screen, because really this conversation, I agree with the Grant. It's a little bit, as much as we say it's easy to talk about it, but you have to be like really careful with every word, with every phrase. You just don't know how you're gonna tip on this toe or that toe. But hopefully, with the goodwill of people, we're gonna all of us, we're gonna be informed and educated properly. So we're gonna achieve something by the end of this. If you know anybody who has ideas in line of this, especially those who disagree with what me and Grant said, by all means, anybody's welcome. As long as you believe we are in Canadian and we want the best for Canada, anybody's welcome to have a chit chat with us here. So we'll catch you later, Grant, and thanks for being here with me tonight. Have absolutely a wonderful good weekend for you and for your son, and for all the other guys here. So thank you very much for being part of this, and we'll see you for the next one. You have a good one for now.
Thank you, guys, and
take care. Salam, eh?
Hold on. Salam. Alaikum salam. Yeah.
Yes. Salam alaikum. That's awesome. Good night, dude.
Later, man. Appreciate it.